Hello and welcome to Call of Discovery, the podcast where we invite you, that's you, in your car, listening to this in the dining room, folding some laundry. We're inviting you on a journey into the Crucible for a fortnightly celebration of all things Keyforge, its community, and the excitement of discovery. I'm your host, Zach Armstrong. Ed is still on the adventure with D-House and J-Bray from the Wild Wormhole. They have accumulated a large pile of magical amber and are currently battling some wizards, but I'm doing something more important, which is having our lovely guest Lyle from Crit Camp back to talk about a deck that's special to him. Lyle, how are you doing today?
Good. Happy to be here and talk about this deck.
Yes, I'd much rather be doing that than helping Ed fight wizards. It's yeah, this is much more pleasant.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. So as you know, dear listener, we have our guests back. Lyle was on last week. If you didn't hear us talk about the SAS climb and the method of playing your decks that the SAS climb is, definitely go back and check that out. And now we've brought Lyle back to talk about a deck that is special, unique to him. That he's got some interesting experiences with. But the first question I have, because I've just been breathing through my nose a bit, did somebody lart in here? Lyle, did you lart?
I'm sorry. What?
Did you lart? Did you lart on live on a podcast?
No.
Oh no, that's just the library access reverse time in the deck. Sorry, I thought somebody larted. Anyways.
Yes.
So Lyle, what is the name of this deck, and what is it? Why have you brought it here today?
Okay. Now I know that I talked extensively about the SAS climb last time, and so I know that everybody's probably thinking that I'm going to bring a low SAS deck that has surprised me. But when Zach asked me to pick a deck in my collection, there's one particular deck that sort of I keep close to my heart because it was the first deck in which I felt like, oh, I want to be good at this deck, or this deck was really interesting enough that like I want it to be my main. And so the name of the deck is Skipolun, the River Warden of Practice, and River Warden is in quotes there, and it is a Coda deck that is Logos, Mars, and Shadows. And this deck I got sort of, I believe, in a sealed event at my local game store, and immediately was like, this could be really, really cool. So that's basically the intro to the deck. Would you like me to go sort of through why I like this, or do you want me to
Sure.
talk about?
Well, what was it like opening it in Seal? Because it's obviously a deck you generated a connection with. What were some things that happened in those first games with it that really drew you in?
I got to tell you, it was a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had both library access and reverse time in it.
Sure.
And I'm trying to remember. My memory is getting hazy now. I can't remember when it was nerfed, library access.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
yeah,
Sure.
and so it might have been a time where you could still play it over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And so as my first deck or one of my first decks that had library access, I knew that was just such an amazing card. And in combination with the reverse time, meant that I could trigger, like I could play a bunch of Logos cards, put them in my discard pile, do reverse time, and then be able to slowly pick them all back up and then replay them again.
Yeah.
And so there was something about that sort of fast cycle that kind of was like infinite at the time that I thought was really, really interesting. I also want to say that I went through a very like emotional roller coaster with House Mars in the beginning. So this deck has Mars in it, and I love the Mars suite in it. But Mars was the house that I hated the most when I first started playing. I just didn't understand it. I thought it was annoying. And this deck was the deck that sort of changed my mind on House Mars. And probably to this day, Mars is like my favorite house, I think, these days. I think
Oh wow.
because it is an underdog and it's not that
Yeah.
great. I mean,
So
if I'm
there's
being
hope for
like,
Ed yet.
yeah, yeah. Well, if I'm being like sweaty Lyle, I would probably say Logos is really my favorite house.
Sure.
I always want Logos in any deck that I own, but there's something about Mars decks that make me want to play them because I want to make them work very like I want to make them work. I know that they're like you're on your back foot. I just want it to be great, and to win with a Mars deck makes you feel like you've done that much better. And I love playing against people that are playing Mars these days because it's like I just haven't seen that house in so long.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, between the Logos and the Mars, I fell in love with this deck, and the Shadows ain't too bad itself either. So if we want to talk about sort of this Mars package that I have here, I'll just read
sure.
off the cards so that the listeners can hear what's in it. It has an EMP blast, it has an irradiated amber, an orbital bombardment, a shatter storm, two grabber jammers, three mind warpers, a John Smith, a biomatrix backup, and a jammer pack. And so there's a lot of really great things that are happening here. And there's a lot of really funny things that sort of happen with this deck, particularly with the Shatterstorm EMP Blast and the irradiated Amber. So in the beginning, when it was just Coda, the stall that the Grabber Jammers and the Jammer Pack can do, and also with the three Mind Warpers, with sort of having your opponents capture Amber from their own side was just fun to do. And then, with the Biomatrix backup, I could sort of grab them back. And then sort of John Smith's shenanigans with Mind Warpers were also really, really good. Um, on the logo side, we have library access reverse time that I talked about, but also Fogify, lab work, phase shift, wild wormhole, a bunch of actions there to help cycle through with library access. Then we have Library of Babel, Mobius Scroll to help go through my deck a little bit faster. Dr. Escatera, which is I believe the weak link of this logos package, a mother, and two Quixos. So a lot of really good card draw there in archiving. And then on the shadow side, double Miasma, Relentless Whispers, a Too Much to Protect, a Bad Penny Seeker Needle, Carlo, Phantom, Dodger, Naughty, Silvertooth, Smiling Ruth, and Urchin. So
That's a classic Call of the Archon Shadows lineup.
yes, lots of good steal, lots of good stall. And so this deck can set up in good ways with the stall from the grabber jammers, mind warpers, and the jammer pack. To get and the miasmas to get off a really good too much to protect. Then you can do like too much to protect with the urchin to sort of do like those kinds of shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And so when this deck is online and moving, it can move very, very fast, and just be very frustrating for the opponent.
Yeah, it looks like it. And the helpful things of decks of Keyforge, right, is some of the quantifying of what decks can do.
Yep.
And so Amber control, of course, being able to keep your opponent off of Amber in off of keys in certain ways is very important. And this is a Call of the Archons deck with a Amber control count of 21, which for Call of the Archons is sky high.
Yes.
Absolutely sky high.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the amber control is crazy. Now the number that contributes to that is also is the Shatterstorm, which is one of the quirky things about this deck. Shatterstorm is so powerful,
Very.
but it comes at a cost, which a lot of Mars stuff tends to do. It comes at a cost. So if you guys aren't familiar or haven't seen Shatterstorm in a while, it's an action from Mars that says lose all your amber, then your opponent loses triple the amount lost this way. And so this can set up some really, really amazing things if your opponent has too much to protect, or if your opponent has interdimensional graft, or things like that. Grab grab 5 amber, grab 4 amber, make your opponent lose 12 or
Mm-hmm.
15. It's kind of a big deal, but it's one of those things where if I can play this, I have to be able to generate that amber back.
Right. Right.
There's a lot of times in which this will be in my hand, and then I have 6 amber, and they have like 6 or 7, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to lose all the amber I've worked so hard to forge and to get to check to then stall out their key. So it gives very interesting decisions that I have to make throughout.
Sure. And in looking at the list, it seems like you've got tons of amber control options, but the deck is a little bit shorter on options for removing enemy creatures on the board. So, is there anything in particular you kind of have to hold on to in this deck, or a way you have to play if your opponent is throwing a lot of big beefy creatures at you?
Yeah, and and now you're starting to get into the weaknesses of this deck.
Mm,
This is the deck. This is the deck that I've had the most plays on. I've played probably over, and again, it's like it's not as much as a lot of other Keyforge players out there, but I have like over 70 plays or 75 plays with this deck.
yeah.
And I actually brought it to my store championship, and it got fourth of I think 16 of us were playing that back in the
Mm,
day. This is back in fall of 2019. And this is the deck I also brought to a regional championship in Louisville, Kentucky, in which I made it to like round 2 or something like that, and I lost almost to a mirror match. Logos Mars Shadows with almost the same kind of lineup. It was actually very interesting and a very fun game. Um, but this is by no means a consistent deck for me.
really?
Yeah, it's I have like just over like a 50% win rate with it. Now you think that like my favorite deck would be a deck that constantly wins, but I just find that I have so many fun games with this deck. And a lot of the issues that I have with the deck is what you just mentioned, is the lack of board control, or like really quick board control. So there are things that I need to keep in this deck all the time, which is like irradiated amber, which is the action from Mars, which is it gives
Oh,
me a
sure.
buck or an amber when I play it, and it says if your opponent has 6 or more amber, then deal 3 damage to each enemy creature. Now, it's great when you can get it off, but it also assumes or like it needs my opponent to be at like check
Right. Right.
to work it. So it really only works when I have my grabber jammers or my mind warpers out on the field, to get it, and then it's only doing 3 damage per, which is great when you're going against a bunch of like shadows, or like small logo stuff, especially in Coda. But when Worlds Collide sort of came out and Dinos came out and everything sort of got beefier, Sanctum came back with more armor,
Yeah.
later, this deck got hit real hard, because there's not a lot of other things it can do board control wise. So then the way I've had to play this deck is more rush down, generate as much amber as possible. I can't think about my opponent's board as much, because there's literally nothing I can really do,
Sure.
other than irradiated amber, reverse time, get irradiated amber back out, and then play it again, assuming I can stall my opponent in the meantime so they can't forge a key.
Right.
So
Right.
when I spoke earlier about sacrifices I have to make, that's one of those things where I have to think: do I stall out my opponent here, or is this the opportunity to play a radiated amber and give them a key? Sometimes it's like the decision I have to make there. Like, is it more advantageous to clear the board now and me maybe forge 2 keys real quick, or the other way around? And the same thing with odd decisions. It's EMP blast, which is a Mars action with 1 amber. Each Mars creature and each robot creature is stunned, and then each artifact is destroyed. I don't necessarily want to stun my Mars creatures, and I don't necessarily want to lose, Library of Babel and Mobius Scroll and Secret Needle.
Yeah.
But sometimes those are the sacrifices you have to make if, say, for example, somebody's playing Heart of the Forest
Right.
or something crazy like Dark Amber Vault,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
any number of crazy artifacts that will just destroy me. A Lash of Broken Dreams, and a couple Dominator baubles. Like there's some things that like I just need to play that card, but it comes at a sacrifice. And so I think the interesting decisions that I have to make here in this deck keep making me go back to it as a deck that like I want to, like, when I win with this deck, I feel like I earned it, kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of earning things, what's your favorite thing you can remember stealing with Smiling Ruth?
Oh, this thing never goes off.
Dang it! Oh, that's so sad. It really doesn't
It's
though.
so
You're right.
so sad. I mean, honestly, like probably like the like one of the best things that I've taken are like a Snarette or
Mm-hmm.
an Ember Imp. I just remember taking, when I could take stuff, like I remember liking taking like disc things,
Sure.
um, as that had like passive effects
Yeah.
on them. I feel like it was interesting, but like honestly, Smiling Ruth never goes off. And if I had the ability to sort of take this into constructed or something like that, like Smiling Ruth would be one that I would toss and put something else in.
Right.
There's a couple cards in this deck where I'm just like, you're more or less useless for me, and I would probably want something else.
Sure. I will say, I'll read it for anybody who hasn't played with Smiling Ruth, although she made a reappearance in Mass Mutation. 1 power, elusive elf thief. She has Reap. If you forged a key this turn, take control of an enemy flank creature. So, stealing creatures, very powerful, but it's bounded by, they have to be flank, and you also have to have forged a key this turn.
Yeah.
I did once have a turn where um, using my 2 essence scales, I stole a Lady Larina and something else, all in one turn. I think my opponent just conceded
Oh,
after
that's
that.
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I did have, so in preparation for this talk, I did play a few games this week, and I haven't
Mm,
played this deck in a long time.
yeah.
I played a couple games on the Crucible this week, and there was this one, like I had Smiling Ruth on the board, and I was playing a Mass Mutation deck in which somebody put their giant Logos double card creature, and it was
Oh
like
yeah.
played it out, and it was on the flank,
Mm-hmm.
and there was just this like moment where I was like, oh my god,
Can I do it?
can I do can I do it? But of course, then I got like Positron bolted like immediately. I was
Right.
like, okay.
Oh, oh
But
my
like there
goodness.
was the chance. I was like, oh my god, this could be amazing. This could be the best deal of my life.
Right. So, aside from poor old Smiling Ruth, you mentioned there's a few other cards that just don't really do it for you in this deck. So, after 70 plays, what are some of the cards that you just have not really found a redemptive use for?
You know, yeah, I gotta say, Smiling Ruth is one of them
Yeah,
where it's cool, but the utility of it never happens, and I would almost rather have almost anything else. Like another Urchin would have been great there if you were talking about like small creatures. Would be good. Also, Carlo Phantom doesn't really do it for me here, because I only have 3 artifacts.
sure,
And Carlo Phantom is a Shadows creature. Everybody, 1 health, elusive skirmish. Each time you play an artifact, steal one. Um, it's one of those things where it just doesn't come into play. Bad Penny actually does much better in this deck than Carlo Phantom, because I have Relentless Whispers and Secret Needle, so I can actually do things with her.
sure.
So Carlo Phantom and Smiling Ruth are probably the 2 that bother me in the Shadows lineup. I'm actually fairly happy with the Mars lineup. I end up using those cards to good effect.
Yeah.
And then Logos, everything seems to be pretty okay, except when I pick up Doctor Escutera, I'm always like, I kind of just wish you were something else.
Right.
Um, and when we're talking about weaknesses of this deck, one of them is board clears. Like if one of those cards that I toss could be a board clear of some kind, that would be great. And because I have trouble keeping my Mind Warpers and John Smith, it's a classic Mars problem on the board. It would have been nice to just have like something beefy with taunt
Mm-hmm.
in this deck as well. I could sort of prevent my grabber jammers from being so easily fought, my mind warpers, my John Smith, my Quixos, all my little small little shadows guys. Everything's so easy to be taken out in this deck. So a way to protect them would be great. A way to clear large boards would be great. But other than that, I think I just have yeah, I think everything else sort of works in the package.
Yeah. It makes sense, and it looks. I mean, it's got the amber control. It's got some speed. It's got uh, plenty of good ways to get amber and just 13 pips straight up. So yeah, even if it is weak to board, like you said, it's got the ability to go ahead and try to um,
Yes.
outrace the opponent and just get across the finish line before a large line of creatures can wreak havoc.
Yeah, if I, it's one of those things that like because I've been playing it this week, I just like there's certain cards that I think about that I'm just like, man, if I just had that,
Mm-hmm.
like it would be a lot better, and one of the cards that I think about is as something as a complement to Irradiated Amber, right? Where Irradiated Amber lets me do 3 damage to everybody. Like I would love like a Maverick Spirit's Way
Oh,
in this
sure.
deck
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like everything with 3 or more power gets destroyed. Like that would
Yeah.
be phenomenal in this deck. And when I'm talking about replacing Doctor Escutera, like if I could just replace Doctor Escutera with a Titan Guardian, I would be
Mm.
more than pleased.
Oh yeah, Titan Guardian is such a good card.
Yeah, and just as a reminder to everybody, Titan Guardian is a Logos creature that has taunt that says if it's destroyed and it's not on a flank, you draw 2 cards. So it's one of those things where it really helps me cycle my deck and it could protect some things. And so like now I'm doing like double duty there. Like that would be phenomenal. But you know, it's the deck is what it is. And as especially like when I was said before, when Worlds Collide came out and Dinos reigned supreme, this deck was like, this can't compete.
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of dinos, especially with, and I just had a game with a buddy of mine, Cameron, who also streams Keyforge sometimes, and he played against me with a Worlds Collide Saurian deck, and he had a couple Odiac, the pediatrician or whatever, the one where like if he has amber
The
on him, you can
pediatrician.
heal his amber, and I'm like, well, great, like now there's a big beefy creature that I have no way to destroy that now shuts down an entire house
All
of
the
mine.
steel. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and so like on the backs of 2 of those out on the board, plus a Ludo, Praefectus Ludo, so he was capturing a lot of stuff and I couldn't get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just stalled me out in a way that was rough. Yeah, that's the thing that really works against this deck as well. Not only just big boards, but if they have amber mitigation that is like similar to mine, like they can stall me out as much as I can stall them out.
Oh, sure.
I get really disrupted. I have a note that I'm looking at that I wrote, and I very rarely write notes in my like Keyforge Master Vault, but apparently
Right.
like I felt so strongly about this at the time in October of 2019 that I wrote this note. I had 2 really bad beats, and I wrote this note. I said somebody had beat me with triple toxins, a subtle maul, two control the weaks,
Oh, geez.
and just completely locked me down. Um, and the other beat was, I lost the heart of the forest because I stalled out so badly, and I didn't have any answers for it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
apparently,
Well, but
there it is.
uh, I mean, for Skipulun's sake, I mean, like 3 toxins and 2 control the weaks, and then Heart of the Forest. Like anybody can lose to that stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's not just Skipolun.
I could just imagine myself like driving home so dejected from whatever that local play was,
Right.
that like I was like, I need to come home and write in my journal, and I opened up Master Vault and I wrote these things like these things hurt me today, and
Right.
be on guard, don't let them hurt you again.
Right. Oh man. Oh, that's funny. That's very funny.
When it is online and it is moving, and when I mean that, I mean, some of my Mars suite of creatures are out, the Grabber Jammers, the Mind Warpers, the John Smith, and they're doing their shenanigans. When the Shadows is out and it's Dodger and Naughty, and Bad Penny Secret Needle, and they're doing their thing. And I can actually get the old library access into reverse time with the phase shift going.
Yeah.
It just feels so dynamic. Like
Mhm.
the turns feel like I'm really, really taking advantage of all the things I can do. And it just feels really great. And I think I'm always chasing that feeling with this deck. That feeling that's like, oh, it's go time. Like, we are ready now to pop off. And so I just love that feeling with this deck. There are very few decks in my collection that make me feel this way when I play them. And even when I lose with this deck, like what we were talking about last time, there are still enough tricks that are fun for me, with it, that make me feel okay about losing. Again, like a switch goes off in my brain when I know that I'm really, really losing, that it's like, just get this combo off,
Sure.
just hit a great reverse time, like just get that one key, that those kinds of things, or like, let's just stall out my opponent long enough to make them frustrated, that
Sure.
they can't quite finish me off.
Uh-huh.
Those are the things that, like, I can sort of switch on with this deck and then still have a really good experience even if I lose.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Lyle, thank you so much for coming back onto Call of Discovery to talk about the River Warden of Practice. We really appreciate it. In case they didn't make good on it last time, where can people find you and Crit Camp?
Sure. You can watch me stream at twitch.tv/critcamp. It's usually a duo tabletop miniatures stream with my buddy Chris, but we do play a lot of Keyforge as well. All of our VODs are on youtube.com/critcamp. You can find us on Twitter at critcamp. Chat with us in our Discord at discord.gg/critcamp. And then you can find me, my personal Twitter at Moscato_Lyle.
Fantastic. Well, dear listener, definitely go check them out if you haven't. They have all sorts of games from the past nearly 8 years that they've been streaming, especially up on YouTube, that you can check out all their gameplay on. And be sure to tune in for some of their streams as well. I am there once or more a month, 1 times or more per month, and it is quite a fun place to be. So if you're enjoying Call of Discovery, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast app of choice. That way you get notified whenever we drop a new episode. And if you're new to Keyforge, make sure to visit the new player guide on Archon Arcana, the Keyforge wiki. It'll help you get started on your own unique journey into this wonderful game. And if you're getting other people into the game, make sure you send them that link. It's got a lot of good stuff. If you're looking to support Call of Discovery monetarily, you can visit our Patreon, which we've linked below, where you can sign up to support us monthly and enjoy rewards like our exclusive Discord or Beyond Discovery, our behind-the-scenes podcast that Ed and I do together. Let us know what you'd like to see more or less of in future shows by interacting with us across all social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@calofdiscovery.com. But most importantly, if you think a friend would enjoy this podcast, please help them to discover it. Have you answered the call of discovery?